As lockdown eases, there has been a rush to the countryside, to the beaches, beauty spots, wild areas, parks and nature reserves. People have walked, picnicked, barbecued and camped. If you've been cooped up in a town or city, maybe without a garden, what a relief it must be to be able to get to a beach or a wild space, to breathe in the clean air, sit in the sunshine, let your eye wander the blue skies and green space, or sit with your family or a socially distanced friend and just soak up the sense of space. The kids aren't bouncing off the walls, they're jumping in the ocean, or making sand castles, or climbing trees, or building up their stick collection. But unfortunately for the wildlife, many natural spaces have suffered a huge amount of littering. According to a BBC News report, it was the worst seen in 30 years. A local wildlife trust said they were saddened and angered by the dramatic increase in habitat damage. They claimed over 20 nature spots had been trashed. People went boating and swimming in prohibited areas, disturbing nesting birds like terns, lapwing, sand martins and oyster catchers. Other breeding birds were disturbed by people partying, drinking and having fires on fishing platforms. Out-of-control dogs chased wildfowl and their chicks, and a grazing pony was found with a dog lead wrapped around its neck. From Bournemouth to Northumberland, London to the Peak District, there were fires caused by barbecues all over the May Bank holiday weekend. Dorset and Wiltshire Fire and Rescue Service responded to 52 calls on the 30th of May, all barbecue-related. So why do some of us litter? Why don't we all respect the natural world? For one thing, we humans like to copy, so some litter can quickly result in a lot of litter. We've been raised in a culture of looking for a bin. Our first thought is not to take it home. If we don't see a bin straight away, we're more likely to drop it or leave it by the bin if the bin is full, and that litter is quickly scattered by the wind and wildlife, some of whom become trapped in the litter itself. Lockdown has made some new habits. Those of us who aren't used to meeting in parks might buy food on the way and leave the packaging behind without an awareness of the consequences. Our minds are focused on seeing our friends, or hygiene, or not wanting to share food or plates, and right now, mid-pandemic, dropping litter might be the least of our worries on any given day. So, is it all our fault? Chris Koo, the Deputy Chief Executive of Thames 21, reports that along the Thames River in London, the majority of the rubbish we're finding is single-use plastic waste. Since the Second World War, companies have found it much cheaper to sell food and drink in disposable containers, and there is still no incentive for them to change. Every year, more plastic will be made than ever before. Greenpeace report that in 2019, all the major supermarkets actually increased their plastic packaging despite all the bad press. Here in the West, we live in a culture of otherness. We grow ever more separated from each other, from the source of our clothes, our possessions, our energy, our food, and the consequences. It's not in the interest of manufacturers to reveal the environmental cost of the things they make, and we don't often want to know. Who wants to connect the dots between eating meat and animals going to slaughter, and who really thinks that a hedgehog is going to get trapped in that Pringles tube? And if it did, who cares? So what can we do? Statistics published in 2018 showed that more people than ever before are visiting and spending time in the natural environment, and the good news is there's lots that we can do on a local level. There are many great local projects and litter campaigns all over the country, and they're always happy to have volunteers. One of my best afternoons was spent collecting litter in Preston Park, silent disco style, with my daughter and best friend on a wet spring Sunday. I'll post some links to local projects at the end. You can sign the Greenpeace petition to get supermarkets to reduce plastic waste. You can email your MP or start your own local litter collection campaign. And of course, reduce, reuse, recycle. Maybe it's time to rethink our approach to litter and the countryside. With less and less government funding, we don't have nearly enough wildlife wardens or bins or resources to deal with the amount of litter we're creating, so the easiest way to deal with it would be to take it home. It's worked in Australia, where their cheeky ad campaigns say, "Don't be a tosser," and taking litter home is now the norm. We need a consistent campaign through schools, in our parks and nature spots to encourage us to think responsibly. And maybe then we would reach a tipping point where if enough of us consider it unacceptable, the policy becomes self-managing. Look how quickly smokers went from being the cool ones to the social pariahs. And nature, nature, nature. Get the kids out there, and not just playing in it, although that's really important, but learning about the animals that live there, investing in it emotionally, feeling attached to it, forming memories in it, and ultimately feeling protective of it. The fantastic Nature Nurture organisation from Reading does a brilliant job of connecting children to the wild spaces right on their doorsteps in the city by creating fun and exciting projects for families to join in at their local parks and green spaces. They're a real inspiration for the future of urban nature connection. Check them out. In the words of Sir David Attenborough, no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced.